Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at another horrible case with you. What happens when a family reunion suddenly takes an unexpectedly fatal turn, switching it from a heartwarming one to a disunion in cold blood. Let's find out in this heartbreaking story of a family reunion without a happy ending, one that questions the act of hospitality. They lived here in the townhouse, where late Wednesday night, police found 6 people dead, including 35-year-old Dharani Delanka Ikanayake and her 4 young children. Danusha Wickramasinghe lived in the Ottawa suburb of Barhaven. He was employed at a mobile company in Sri Lanka, but he left there and arrived in Canada in July 2021 to pursue a higher education and had recently established a cleaning company. He had spent several lonely years in Canada, working to establish himself before reuniting last summer with his wife, Dharani Ekanayake. At the time of the reunion, they had 3 young children together. Inuka and Ashini attended Manor Paul Baxter School on Beatrice Drive, a 5-minute walk from the house. The youngest daughter, Kelly, was born in Ottawa, Canada, where the family lived. It was a typical family where the man of the house leaves his home and travels to another country for brighter and bigger opportunities, hoping to establish himself and get a house before his family reunites with him in their new neighborhood. All Danusha wanted was to be a provider for his loving young family, but life had other plans for him. Last summer came the happy reunion with his wife, Dharani Ekanayake, who was a teacher, and their 3 children. Months later, they had a baby girl named Kelly, and the arrival of the newborn brought so much joy to the family. But this joy turned into the city's worst ever mass killing. 5 members of one family and an acquaintance all died Wednesday night. Danusha Wickramasinghe thought his days of living alone in Ottawa were behind him, but on one Wednesday, a horrible nightmare began to develop at the other side of Wickramasinghe's front door. Canada became the place where a terrifying tragedy would occur on March 6, 2024. This was the day when the peace and quiet of a neighborhood house was disturbed by an act of violence that left everyone in total shock. The Wickramasinghe home, once filled with the innocent laughter of children, was replaced with a creepy and deadly silence that expressed the depth of the loss. This has been a case that has shaken not just Ottawa, but the entire nation of Canada. It is a day everyone in the region has marked as the horrifying killing of the Wickramasinghe family. While Danusha Wickramasinghe sustained serious injuries, his wife, Dharani Delanka Ekanayake, who was 35 years old, Inuka Wickramasinghe, his 7-year-old son, his first daughter, Ashwini Wickramasinghe, who was 4 years old, 2-year-old Renaya Wickramasinghe, his second daughter, the family's infant, Kelly Wickramasinghe, who was just 2½ months, and Gamini Amaran Mudan Salag, a 40-year-old family friend, were brutally murdered. The investigators involved in the case said Danusha was found outside the house yelling for help and was taken to the hospital, where he was reported to be in a serious but stable condition. The police reported that the bodies of his wife, 4 children, and an acquaintance were then found inside the home. The 6th individual, who was found dead, was 40-year-old Gamini Amaran Mudan Salag. According to the police, he was an acquaintance of the family who recently arrived in Canada and had been living at the Wickramasinghe home. Dharani Delanka Ekanayake, 35, was formerly a student at Maladea Balika Vidyalaya and an alumna of Colombo University. She was employed at St. Benedict Model School in Poga. She was among the 6 people fatally attacked in a suburban townhome in the Ottawa community of Barhaven on Wednesday night in what police described as the worst mass killing in the city's history. Her 4 children, including an infant, were also killed, as was an adult acquaintance of the family who was living with them. Dharani's husband, 38-year-old Danusha Wickramasinghe, was wounded but survived. Ganta Ekanayake, her mother, aged 66, stated that she sensed something was off the last time she spoke to her daughter Dharani on Wednesday night, the 6th of March. The 2 phoned each other every evening, Dharani in her home in Ottawa, her mother in Pogahawa, located 2 hours outside the Sri Lankan city of Colombo. Their conversation on Wednesday was unusually brief, just 5 minutes. M. Ekanayake felt something was weighing on her daughter's mind, but they didn't speak about it. "She asked me to go to sleep," Monsieur Ekanayake recalled. She was planning to visit her daughter in 2 months to see her and her grandchildren. Her worry grew when she didn't hear from Dharani on Thursday night. The next morning, when Monsieur Ekanayake heard from a local news outlet about a Sri Lankan family that had been killed in Ottawa, she knew immediately it was her daughter's family. M. Ekanayake said her daughter, son-in-law, and their 3 oldest children were newcomers to Canada from Sri Lanka. Kelly, the youngest, was born in Canada. They were seeking work, she said, and a good education for the children. Darshani was a devoted Buddhist who rejected the pull of materialism, Miss Ekanayake said, adding that before leaving for Canada, she had donated piles of her belongings to another family after a flood. More recently, she had asked her mother to donate a child's bicycle she had left behind when she immigrated. She was a kind, loving, and peaceful young lady, looking out for her parents and her children. Police have arrested Febrio Dua, who also lived in the home. He has now appeared in court, charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. As much as old age doesn't always depict wisdom, young age doesn't always depict innocence. Following through with the story of the killing of the young Wickramasinghe family, it would have been safe to assume they were brutally murdered by a much more mature person who probably had scores to settle with the family or a drunk guest recovering from the death of a loved one. Unfortunately, the perpetrator of this evil act was a 19-year-old boy, one who was generously accommodated by Danusha Wickramasinghe. What connects Danusha to Febrio Dua? Initially, Mr. Wickramasinghe was studying and residing at a boarding house with Dua. However, when the young man was asked to vacate his boarding accommodations by the landlord, it was Mr. Wickramasinghe who offered him lodging in the basement of his home a few months prior. He was known for posting videos of the video game Minecraft on YouTube. His YouTube account has now been taken down. A spokesperson for Google, which owns YouTube, said via email that following the tragic attack in Ottawa, the Trust and Safety Team identified and terminated a YouTube channel associated with the suspect under the Creator Responsibility Guidelines. The spokesperson stated that if a user's off-platform behavior harms the YouTube community, they may take action. The man behind the mask. The alleged murderer was a 19-year-old former Algonquin College student. This unassuming young man, who once walked the halls of a respected educational institution, is accused of the tragic crime that has saddened the hearts of people throughout Ottawa and beyond. He is also a Sri Lankan national and now faces 6 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. It was reported and confirmed that the family even celebrated his birthday together some months before, getting him a cheesecake because he said he liked it, just to make his birthday memorable. Like a family moving from Sri Lanka with such young children, they probably had a lot of hopes and dreams. So it is very sad. Mr. Danusha Wickramasinghe had also met the suspect's parents in Sri Lanka. Mr. Danusha Wickramasinghe arrived home around 10:30 p.m. and found Dua with a knife. According to Sumanarathana, the resident monk and director of the Hilda Jayawardhana Aramaya Buddhist Monastery, Danusha wrestled with his assailant. He then felt the sting of a knife or another edged weapon slashing across his face. The police later called it a knife-like weapon. He was also stabbed in the chest and back, and at least one of his fingers was cut off. Blood was everywhere inside. His entire family was already dead, including the family friend. "I cannot say he's doing well, but he's a little bit stronger than we thought," said a monk from the community. "Mentally, he's in great shock." During the attack, Wickramasinghe begged Febrio Dua not to harm his family and asked if he had harmed them in any way. Febrio said no, but that was a lie. Wickramasinghe then discovered the bodies of his family, according to Sumanarathana, and locked himself in a room due to shock, fear, and deep worry. Later, he ran back outside screaming, bleeding, and inconsolable. Neighbors summoned the police, who arrived a few minutes later and subdued the attacker. The police arrived around 10:52 p.m., and Doa was arrested shortly before 11 p.m. at 11:17 p.m. Ottawa police stated that day on social media that there was a police operation ongoing in the 300th block of Barron Drive and advised people to avoid the area. On Thursday, March 7th, around 2:30 a.m., the Ottawa police stated on social media that they were on the scene of a homicide with multiple victims confirmed deceased. They also stated that one additional person had been taken to an Ottawa area hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. One arrest had been made, and there was no continued threat to public safety.
Shock! I can't explain it.
It's tough, said one resident. Did you know them? A reporter asked. No, I didn't, but, seeing the guys in their white suits and everything, it's more real now, the resident replied. At 6:15 a.m., the police said in a press release that the homicide unit was investigating the deaths of 6 people who were found at the address the night prior. The victims were identified as 2 adults and 4 children. Police said their identities had not been confirmed as of that time, calling it a tragic and complex investigation. I want to emphasize, this was a senseless act of violence perpetrated on purely innocent people, Ottawa Police Chief Eric Stubbs told CBC Radio. Initially, the homicide was referred to as a mass shooting, but later in the day, Stubbs corrected his statement to say it was a mass killing. The police held a press conference at 1:30 p.m. They identified the victims and said charges had been laid against Dua. At the press conference, Stubbs told reporters that the police believed an edged weapon with sharp edges, like a knife, was used in the killings. While some murderers have motives behind their ruthless actions, others perform senseless acts of murder without reason or cause. Ponsuntha, a resident monk and director of the Hilda Jayawardhana Aramaya Buddhist Monastery, said that all was not well with Fabio Dua. He had dropped out of school and also had thoughts of suicide. A spokesperson for Algonquin College confirmed that Dua had been a student there, and the last time he attended school was in the winter 2023 semester. In an interview with the suspect's relative, Fabio Dua's aunt stated that the family had been so nice to him. She said the accused is her brother's oldest son and came to Canada 2 years ago. She described her nephew as quiet and a good student. She was visibly shaken and said they were such a wonderful family. She confirmed that Wickramasinghe had been working to move his family from Sri Lanka to Ottawa and had invited Dua to live with him at the Barron Drive house once his family came over. She said Dua stayed with relatives in Ottawa before moving in with the Wickramasinghe family, but also mentioned that he had recently cut off his relatives. It's obvious that the Wickramasinghe family had been nothing but good to Fabio. So, what then could have made him kill the entire family, leaving Mr. Wickramasinghe severely injured? Dua arrived in Canada 2 years ago. He lived with his aunt during his first month in the country, then later met Wickramasinghe at Algonquin College. Suddenly, he seemed to break off all contact with his relatives, blocking their phone numbers and social media accounts. He took actions that displayed his possible desire to remain in isolation, detaching himself from those who cared about him and from the only family he had in Canada. While some established newspapers have relied on Canadian or international reporting for their coverage, there has also been original reporting in Sri Lanka. Since Fabio lived most of his life there and had his roots in Sri Lanka, journalists sought out family members connected to the victims. The killings have also produced various speculations about the motives of the accused, both on social media and some news websites. Baseless rumors have floated theories blaming everything from video games to visa issues to mystical elements and superstitions such as the Great Curse. None of the charges against Dua have been proven, and the court has not had any evidence surrounding the circumstances of the crimes to date. Police have yet to identify a possible motive. Gamini Amaron, a 40-year-old acquaintance of Danusha Wickramasinghe, was also killed in the attack. Amaron had arrived in Canada 2 months prior, leaving behind a wife and 2 children in Sri Lanka. Before his death, He had been working to establish himself in Canada, possibly to support his family back home. Amaron's social media presence indicated he was a sales and marketing consultant running a business called VIP Air Tours. His last public Facebook post on February 20th thanked people for birthday wishes. On March 28th, Dua made a brief court appearance, stating only his name and birthday. The 19-year-old, who had no prior criminal charges, now faces 6 counts of first-degree murder. His judicial pretrial was scheduled for April 17th, with his next court appearance on April 18th. Legal experts have suggested the case could take years due to its complexity and the need for psychiatric evaluations to determine if Doe is fit to stand trial. Professor Daphne Gilbert from the University of Ottawa stated that cases like this often involve lengthy investigations and consultations. Wickermingi family, just after a short time of living in Ottawa, shows how much impact they made in their community, even in the little time they lived there. It's quite relieving to know that Danushka Wika Singh, the lone survivor, has family, loyal friends, and his community to lean on during his time of grief. I will be sure to make another video after the killer goes to trial, and we get a conclusion to this tragic case as more unfolds. That's all. For now, what do you think about this case? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get notified when we drop new videos. Bye for now.